Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, Threaten My Quality of Life? Enjoy relearning what compassion is. So a quick bit of info about me. A really traumatic event happened to me a few years ago which made my existing depression, anxiety issues 100 times worse, and I've been struggling in and out of therapy for the last few years. This year I finally, with medication and therapy, found a part-time job which is helping my mental health, and I'm improving. Now because of this, I've had to rely on welfare for a while, as I would be homeless without it subsidizing my rent. Where I live you must go to appointments with a job provider, which is someone who assists you get back into life and the workforce and helps manage disabled people in work. I've had fine experiences with most of them, helping set me up with free psychologists to assist my illness. Others making phone appointments for me when I was in a bad state, unable to leave the house. Basically they report to the government what you're doing so you keep your welfare. In comes HB, Heartless Bitch, my new assigned job provider. The employees at these facilities change every few months because it's a depressing job dealing with people who are at a low in life. During work one week, I had contracted a nasty cold from a client, and out of respect, I called a few days before my appointment and let her know that I had a cold and could come in 2 days when I wasn't contagious. You'll need to get a doctor's certificate for that. In my few years sadly in this system, these appointments were more a checkup rather than a strict system. I understand if I was dodging it, but this wasn't anything of the sort. I explained to her that it wasn't so serious, a doctor would do a certificate for it, but I could go anyway. I asked her politely to reschedule, but she said, "Come in when you have the doctor's certificate." Okay, it's on. I make the doctor's appointment for 2 days because it was the soonest I got. I knew my doctor and knew that he wouldn't stand for this. A German man in his 60s with a firm grasp of common sense. I went in and explained that I needed a doctor's certificate for a cold I had on the weekend, early in the week. And he told me, "That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. If you have a migraine you call in, you can't come get a doctor's certificate for it. What a waste of taxpayers' money. I won't bill the healthcare system for this. Give her my card and tell her to call me if she has any issues." So off I go home. I call the job provider's head office and explain how upset I am at how I was treated across the phone, and how I didn't really want to go to another appointment as it flared up my anxiety. Head office isn't happy to hear that a system that's supposed to support people, especially those who work and need a little help, is giving someone a hard time. But it doesn't end there. So sadly I'm told I will probably have to go to next appointment with her, which she didn't make. So I decide to go up and show her the doctor's card. So in I go, and the receptionist comes up and I state my name asking for the consultant. Now, I have a unique last name, it's long and very obvious of what religion, race it's from. And I overhear them in the office behind, "Oh, it's throwaway, whatever the fuck it is," and I'm not happy. I found it horribly rude how they mocked my last name, so I go into the appointment face to face with this woman for the first time. I explain what the doctor said to me and her face contorts into a grimace. I ask her to reinstate my payments as she had suspended them from marking me absent even though I called to rearrange. She then tells me I have to do full-time work to qualify for no outside activities, as known as forced non-paid work. I explained to her my disability with my mental health and how the last consultant I had helped me by organizing a psychologist, as I was not ready to transition to full-time work as I'd only just gotten a part-time job and I'm still getting used to that. She doesn't want to hear it and tells me that, well, you can do it or you can have your payments canceled, your choice. Okay, now it's on. You're threatening where I live because you have something against me now? I reluctantly agree to a second appointment, but I knew I wasn't going to go to it. Oh no. I call head office again as soon as I get out of there to let them know how awful I felt that they mocked my last name, as its heritage was very important to me. And how I felt I was being targeted as I'd never had issues previously. I turned up to the next appointment and was met with the manager, holding a transfer form for me. She spoke to me in a very resentful tone and then went on to slander every other job provider. This won't do. I take the form and submit it to the other job provider who said that they didn't sign it. A week or two later I receive an email letting me know that the person in question is now in compulsory courses to teach better understanding as they had been too cruel towards other people as well. They call me to let me know this as well, where I told them about the slandering. Turns out that's the person on the phone. This woman continues to laugh nervously as I tell her how unprofessional it is to slander other companies in front of customers, but you know what? Out of my hair. She told me the transfer should come through soon and I get to sleep at night knowing HB has to attend compassion classes to not be so rude to people. Next one is titled, "Ignore me asking for my deposit? That's cool, you can just pay me triple then." A few years back I rented a duplex. I lived in it, I moved out. Nothing special. During the move-out inspection they did the standard landlord thing and looked for any excuse to deduct from the deposit. They knew from the lease agreement that we had pets, so of course the first thing the inspector says entering the house is, "I smell animals. We'll have to charge you the cost of getting a special pet odor removing cleaning service." We were right there to call him on his BS with the invoice and paperwork from the cleaning service that already did a comprehensive clean, including a pet odor package. He quickly dropped that BS. Then he found a carpet stain which, despite everyone's best efforts, never completely came out. Fair enough. We were relieved that they didn't take much off for that at all. Then he took a little more off for having to patch some holes where we hung photos. In the end we were still owed at least 80 to 90% of our original deposit. They also told us we need to keep the utilities running in our name for a week after we move out so they can do some work on the place. This wasn't in our lease as something that's required of us, but I was nice and extended my utilities an extra week for them. Then they told us to extend the utilities another 2 weeks because they weren't done. Enough was enough, so I told them no. They gave us a statement of how much our deposit was, how much they deducted and for what, and how much was left over for us. By the books, until they didn't actually deliver it. I tried giving them the benefit of the doubt, but they had our mailing address for our next place and it never turned up. I called them, emailed them twice a week asking if they've mailed it or if I can just pick it up from their office. No answer, no reply. They were completely ghosting us. We found out that the state law says if your deposit, minus deductions, isn't paid within 30 days of vacating, you can take your landlord to court for up to 3 times the amount of the original deposit, no deductions. We read and studied this law well and concluded that there's no reason we shouldn't be able to fight this and win, no lawyer required. A $90 filing fee later and our landlord was served notice of our intent. Then woo-ah, wade no. After all that ghosting for 45-ish days, the day after we filed our petition we get an email from the landlord saying he sees that we're wanting to take legal action but has a tremendous offer for us to settle out of court. The full deposit, no deductions, plus the $90 filing fee back. Duck their low ball offer. I replied reminding them that I can force them to pay 3 times the deposit, but I will settle out of court for just twice the deposit. Did I need to settle? I don't know, the law says up to 3 times. So I guess I was worried that if it actually went to court, a judge might decide that the circumstances aren't bad enough to warrant that much more money for me, so it might not be worth the trouble. Twice was good enough for me, and making them lose money over it was what I was going for anyways. They agreed immediately, and said I could pick up the check at their office. When I stopped by, what still confuses me to this day was that they still insisted on showing me the report of all the things wrong with the house that they had to deduct from the original deposit, like I gave a duck at that point. That ship had sailed. They were paying me twice the full deposit anyways. They could stick their petty, unfulfilled deductions up their butt. Closing thoughts. Do landlords do this often? Why would they just blatantly withhold your deposit without giving a reason? Do they think people won't fight for it back? Do the people who don't fight it outnumber the ones that do? Meaning they can make a profit by withholding everyone's deposit by default? Next one is titled, Withdrawal and Deposit Revenge. My grandfather married my grandmother back in the 1930s. She was black and he was white. He owned a few factories for a while and after the war sold them all for a huge amount of money. They decided to move to a small town and he transferred his accounts to the local branch of the bank he used there. One day my grandmother went to the bank to withdraw some money for her son, my dad, that he needed for college. When she walked in, she signed in and waited her turn. Other people came after her and this man at the desk started to call on them before her. She noticed that they were all white and she felt that because she was black they were treating her like a second-class citizen. When the man went to call on someone else she approached him and told him that she was there first and had been waiting. The man very sternly, rudely told her that she needed to wait because the other people had more urgent matters. She was livid, so she went home and told my grandfather about this. He got in his car with my grandmother and drove back to that bank. When he walked in, the man working there, who ended up being the branch manager, went running to him to greet him. When he saw my grandmother with him, his eyes got as big as saucers and he knew the jig was up. My grandfather ended up reading him the riot act and loudly asked my grandmother what she wanted to do. She said, "Close our accounts. Let's move them across the street." Well, my grandfather did this and the manager was profusely apologizing for the misunderstanding, but it was too late. They took their cashier's checks and walked right across the street and opened new accounts at the smaller bank there. My grandfather then called up the national branch and told them what happened. The bank owner from the new bank and my grandfather actually ended up becoming friends and I even ended up marrying his grandniece. Eventually the racist branch manager from the old bank was let go a couple of weeks later when the national company found out about him losing such a huge monumental account. Last one is titled, Red and White, which? This one is real long, make some popcorn. This happened a few years ago, when I was working for a company that did work in the oil and gas sector. The guys in the field worked on ships, in the Gulf of Mexico, North Sea, places like that. It was very hard work, 12-hour days, 7 days a week. They would go out for a few weeks at a time, and then get a week off. They made mad amounts of money for this, several $100s a day. The accountant we had was a ducking genius, with a deep knowledge of international tax laws, and each of the field techs was paid to an account in an offshore tax haven. The end result was that they not only got paid lavishly, they got to keep most of it. Dino was one of these guys. Dino was a really nice, quiet guy, and unlike some of the hard partying guys on the crew, he didn't blow his money as fast as it came in. He had investments, and a condo that was fully paid for. The guy wasn't hurting, that's for certain. Dino, however, was a bit ordinary looking, and kind of shy. Which was why we were all surprised when he finally got a girlfriend, let's call her the witch. The witch was smoking hot, like centerfold material, and although I only met her twice, at parties at Dino's, she raised the hair on the back of my neck. She was one of the most self-centered, attention-gathering people I had ever met. She was smart, all right, you could tell that in 5 minutes of conversing with her. But she was devastatingly gorgeous, knew it, and was very skilled at manipulating the people around her. Every instinct in me screamed, predator. But hey, it's not my business, right? If Dino walks past an open pussy, and falls in, that's his business. She ends up moving in with Dino, and from what I gather, are pretty much living common law. I would only get to see Dino once in a blue moon, when he was back in town, and we would shoot the crap, but I wouldn't call him my best buddy. I heard most of this from other people in the company, but later I was able to confirm it directly with Dino. He started getting suspicious that the witch was playing him for his money, and cheating on him. He was seeing stuff on his bank statements like a $300 grocery purchase, and then another $200 a couple of days later. Either she was eating $500 worth of groceries a week, or she was pumping cashbacks from the grocery store into her purse. So he arranged for his relief to come out a few days early, and flew back home. Dino was no idiot, so he had a plan in place before he walked into his condo and caught the witch in his bed with another guy. He had the security guy from the condo with him. He didn't go off, didn't lose his temper, to his credit. Just told the guy to get the duck out. Then he told the witch to get the duck out, too. He handed her the key to hotel room, $50 for cab fare, and told her to leave. She went ballistic, hysterical. Screaming, crying, apologizing and proclaiming her love for him in one breath, and cursing him with the next. He just looked at the security guard, and told him to call the police. The cops arrived at about the same time as the locksmith. While the locks were getting changed, the cops checked IDs and the witch was still using her parents' address on all her documents. The security guard confirmed that Dino, and Dino alone, was the registered owner of the condo. The cops basically told her that if she didn't leave, she would be arrested for trespassing. Off she went, in more hysterics, probably to the ATM. Good luck with that. The first thing Dino did was cancel her cards. In the morning, a moving crew came, and Dino walked with them, pointing at stuff, all of it hers. Into boxes it went, and was hauled off to a storage unit, which he had prepaid. By this time his phone was blowing up, all of it calls from the witch, to the point where he just turned it off. Later that day, she showed up at the condo to get some of her stuff. The concierge handed her the key to the storage unit, and directions on how to get there. Then he instructed her that she was no longer welcome on the property. Dino, although he held himself together, was devastated. He immediately went back out into the field, and back to work. While he was out there, he began to have second thoughts, wondered if he had overreacted, and was wondering if he did the right thing. One of Dino's prized possessions was a mint-condition white Chevrolet Monte Carlo. It had been left to him when his dad passed away, and it was his baby. He had a daily driver, but this was his special ride. It was mint, absolutely mint, and everyone knew how much Dino loved his car. Including the witch. As soon as he returned from offshore, all possibilities or reconciliation went out the window as soon as he saw the car. 4 flat tires, smashed glass, and a can of red paint had been poured over it. The cameras in the parking garage were almost non-existent, so there was no proof, but didn't take Sherlock Holmes to figure this one out. Dino was furious, called the witch, and they had one incredible blowout over the phone. She didn't exactly admit doing it, but was gloating and laughing at Dino, who basically told her to go duck herself. The revenge. A couple of years go by. Dino still works with the oil company, but now has an office job, and only occasionally does field work. There are 2 sisters, roommates, let's call them Chatty Cathy and Normal Nancy. I met them at the parties, too. Chatty Cathy was cute as a button, and the witch's best friend forever. But stupid. Seriously, one of the dizziest blondes I have ever met. Didn't use her brain for much more than preventing her ears from colliding. Normal Nancy was her sister, and absolutely hated the witch. Loathed her with a deep and eternal fury. Dino had kept in touch with Normal Nancy as platonic friends. I always thought they would make a great couple, they were well suited to each other, but as Dino explained it, there just wasn't a physical attraction. They got on well, but there just wasn't a spark. Nancy was very private about her social life, and Cathy didn't know she was still in touch with Dino. For good reason. I called her Chatty Cathy. This girl would simply not shut up. She would babble and babble away, talking the stupidest nonsense. Astrology, that level of intellect, but her favorite thing to talk about was other people. This girl couldn't keep a secret if she locked it in a bank vault. So Normal Nancy knew that she had to keep things to herself unless she wanted her sister blabbing all about it. One day Chatty Cathy comes home all excited. Her BFF had asked her to be in her wedding party. That's right, the witch had roped in another man, and she was taking this one to the altar. Isn't it exciting? A wedding. Nancy mentions this to Dino. They have a pretty good time joking about how this poor guy is in for a world of trouble, and how lucky Dino is to have dodged a similar bullet. But then they start to realize that they both ducking hate the witch, and this is a perfect time for Dino to get his revenge. So they plot. And they plan. Normal Nancy is Dino's eyes and ears. It doesn't take much to pump information out of Chatty Cathy. Hey, Cathy, what are the witch's plans for the catering? Do you know what she's serving? No, but I can find out. Before long, Dino knows pretty much everything about the wedding arrangements. All of it. The witch is living at her parents' place, and isn't moving in with the hubby until they are married. About a month before the wedding, she gets an anonymous letter in the mail. In the envelope is a picture of a Monte Carlo, a wedding dress, and a ketchup packet. There's a single sheet of paper, with 3 words. Red on white. Dino knows where the witch is having her wedding dress made. He goes to the shop, and asks the guy if he wants to make an easy $100. All he has to do is call the witch, and tell her that they need her to come to the shop and choose the red lace trim for her gown. She shows up 20 minutes later, freaking out, and demanding to know what this is about. The guy says he got a call from her fiancé, and ordered the red lace for the dress. The witch knows that it wasn't the fiancé. 2 weeks before the wedding, Nancy lets slip to Kathy that one of Dino's good friends works for the catering company that the witch hired. Naturally, this gets back to the witch, who immediately deletes the pasta dishes and has tomatoes removed from the salads, in fear that Dino's non-existent buddy might dump a plate on her, by accident. Dino had about 30 different red lipsticks sent to her house from a variety of Amazon sellers, all paid from prepaid credit cards. In the middle of the night, he snuck up to her car, and placed a red Sharpie under the windshield wiper. All of this had the desired effect. Planning a wedding is stressful enough, and the added drama brought out the very worst in the witch. She became more and more volatile as the date neared. She even had her father call Dino at work to talk him into backing off, but when Dino explained what she had done to him, and to his car, the father became really pissed off at the witch. Dino felt bad, and explained that he wasn't going to ruin her wedding, but more for the father's sake than for his. The dad took this info to the witch, and the witch didn't believe a word of it. At the wedding reception, the witch was a basket case. She demanded that all the red flowers be removed from the centerpieces on all the tables. She refused to get within 10 feet of anyone holding a glass of red wine. She spent more time and attention looking for the ambush she was certain was coming, and Dino didn't do a damn thing. He turned her into a bridezilla, and Nancy, who was invited, kept him updated with a running commentary as the night progressed. It was legendary. Thanks for listening.